fresh buns.
Mashed potato buns.
Even better yet. I'm going to rebuild this Quadra Jet. What I do first is try to pull all the linkages off. And if you're not sure how these linkages go, just what you can do is make yourself a diagram on how they go, or take a picture of each side of the carburetor so you don't forget how they go back. To take this auxiliary pump linkage off, I just put a little piece of tin behind here, and then I'm going to pound this pin out back in there. But I don't want the pin to go right against here because I'll never get it back. So I put something in there so that you can put a screwdriver in there after and push the pin back. I take a little nail, there, and then you can just take this linkage out and the pin will stay there. This is where the fuel goes in, and there's a filter inside here. And a spring. And on this side is the choke assembly. This here is the choke pull-off. Just take this two screws off here. And this comes out. This here is the choke assembly in here, and you take these, loosen these three screws, and then you can turn this back and forth to adjust the choke. But you have to take this off in order to get this all out anyways. Once you loosen these three, you can turn. Supposed to be able to turn this anyways. There. Tightens and loosens that spring inside. There's that spring, and it's hooked onto the choke here, and it adjusts. As it gets hotter here, this adjusts the choke and opens up the choke. And when it's cold, it closes the choke. This little linkage here, when it's cold, it locks the secondaries so they can't open. It locks the secondaries so it can't open. Once it gets warm, this thing releases, and then you can open the secondaries. And this is the idle adjustment screw. We can take that out, and this little screw on top here is to take out the secondary metering rods. You got to be very careful with this little guy because he's such a tiny little screw. And then these rods just come out like this. Now we can take the top off. There is, on the top, 2 screws at the back, which are the long ones. 2 here, 2 here, and 2 inside here. Inside here there's 2, then there's 1 here. So you have to not to forget these 2 inside here, and they're kind of a special beveled screw, so you got to put them back. Once you have all the screws taken off the top, you just pry gently in here and try to leave the gasket on the body part. These 4 little tubes here are very delicate, so make sure so you don't bend them. Now we can just take this out. And these here are the primary metering rods. And they kind of have to, you have to take this gasket off before you get them off. And if you can try and save this gasket so you can compare it to the new one, so to make sure it's the same. Try to save as much as you can of it anyways. I guess I should have taken this off sooner. And what you got to do here is kind of bend this back. Lift this over top, kind of shove it forward to take that off. And here's your primary metering rods. careful with them too. Take this little plastic piece off, just a kind of a cover to hold the float parts in. And then you can take the float assembly out. And this little needle valve here just hangs in there. Oh, I think somebody put this one in wrong. Somebody hung it in that hole. You see that? It's supposed to be just hanging on the edge here, like that. Now inside here, we're going to take this needle seat out. We're going to take these two springs out of here, a spring in there, and then we're going to take these two jets out. And then we're going to take this one screw in here, and it has a little steel ball in there. These are the two jets. Here's that kind of a special screw. And underneath that screw there's a ball, a little steel ball in there that acts like a check valve. Then we use a pretty wide screwdriver here to take out the needle seat. And there's also a little washer here . Okay, I think that's it for the top part here. So now we just flip this around, and there's two screws here to take the bottom part off. Take out these air-fuel mixture screws. Take this gasket off. I try to save all the gaskets so that I can compare them to the new ones, make sure they're all the same. Okay, this is the serial number of this carburetor. I just wrote it down here. And the first two numbers are 70. And all carburetors that start with a 70 means that this carburetor was produced before 1976. The next one is a number 4 here, which means the decade it was produced, and that is between 1970 and 75, this number 4. If it was a number 3 here, or a number 2, it would be in the 1960s. The next number here, this number 2 here, is the year it was produced, and in this case it's 1972. The next 2 here is the model of the carburetor, which is a number 2 here, which is a Quadra Jet 4-barrel. If it was a number 1 here, it would be a 2-barrel Federal Standards. If it was a 0 here, it would be a 1-barrel Federal Standards. If it was a number 3 here, it would be a single-barrel California Standards. If it was a number 4 here, it would be a 2-barrel California Standards. If it was number 5 here, it would be a 4-barrel California Standards. And the next one here is the division of the carburetor. And in this case it's a number 1, and that indicated that it was put on a Chevy car, truck, whatever, I guess. A 0, a number 1, and a number 2 means it was made for Chevrolet. If it was a number 4 here, it would be on a Buick. If it was a number 5 here, it would be for an Olds. If it was a 6 or a 7, it would be for a Pontiac. And the last one here is the transmission type. And all even numbers are an automatic transmission, and all odd numbers are a manual transmission. In this case, I guess a 0 means an even number. Now underneath the serial number on the carburetor, there's another little number, which is the date it was built. In this case, it says 138, which means the 138th day of the year of 1972. So that would probably make it, let's see, 36.9, probably a beginning of May sometime of 1972. If you have a serial number starting with a 170, all these carburetors were built in 1976 or later. The 8 here is the decade it was produced, and in this case the 8 means the 80s. If it was a number 5 here, this would be 1976 to 1979. Now this one here is the year produced. Here at 1982. This number 2 here is the model. And that's just like all the other carburetors. In this case it's a 2, it's a Quadra Jet 4-barrel Federal Standards. If it was a 1, it'd be a 2-jet Federal Standards. If it would be a 0 here, it would be a 1-barrel Federal Standards. If it be a number 3 here, it would be a single-barrel California Standards. And if it was a number 4 here, it would be a 2-barrel California Standards. And if it was a number 5 here, it would be a Quadra Jet 4-barrel California Standards. Okay, this here number is the division. Again, it's the same as the other ones. In this case, it's a number 8, so it was for a Chevy Olds GMC and truck. In this case, if it was a 6 or a 7, it'd be for Pontiac. If it be a 5, it'd be just for Olds. If it be a number 4, it was for Buick. If it would be a 0, 1, or a 2, it's indicate that it's for Chevrolet. And this here is the transmission again. Now, in this case it's a number 3, so it's an odd number, and that's supposed to be for a manual transmission. But this carburetor, I'm not sure about that, because this carburetor was the original carburetor of this vehicle, and it was an automatic transmission. So I'm not sure about this. Now this 1533 was the date code, and it's the 153rd day of 1983. And this carburetor is off a 1983 Olds Cutlass.